Hi guys, it's Jordi V, and today I'm gonna show you how to make this Outrun Synthwave kind of track. So I started this track like a couple of days ago, but I didn't feel like finish it, so I ended up arranging the track, but it mainly needs some more mixing and mastering. Maybe add some extra organic elements like a saxophone lead or something, but as for now, I thought maybe why not do a video tutorial about it, since I think that the meat of the track is here. So yeah, let's get into it. I started this track with these pads or like chord progression. So synthwave kind of tracks are mainly in the key of in major keys. So I start with this chord sequence in the key of A major. So I highly advise you to experiment around the major keys this time, and not this kind of cheesy major sound, but kind of find a way in order in your chord phrasing and notes to make it like more nostalgic and more within the vibe of the 80s, I guess. So we have these pads, let's listen to them here. So yeah, sorry about this kind of sidechain effect. This is a very heavy CPU kind of project, so I decided to freeze the pads. Maybe I should have like group it and put the sidechain compression or the VST on the group, but let's just deal with that for now. So yeah, I played these pads on Serum. I added some some EQ8 here to cut some of the low frequencies and some of the high frequencies. I have this kickstart plugin instead of the compressor on Ableton to do the side chaining. I have the Serum effects here to add some chorus and some reverb. And finally some RC20, which is a plugin that make your sounds a little bit retro, which is the sound we are looking for within this kind of tracks. Later I moved to the bassline. So with the bassline you have basically, in my opinion, two choices or multiple choices. The obvious choices is to go with the root notes of your chords, or the second best approach is to go and pick up your bass notes of your chords and play a 16th note. So I've decided to just do that. So if I go to my MIDI clip here and go to 16th, as you might see here, or maybe eighth notes, sorry. So play eighth notes here. You will see that I played eighth notes all towards my MIDI clip. Later I added pitch plus 12 to play the original MIDI clip in a higher octave. Serum bass here, some effects on Serum again. I'm using the plugin here. It's gonna take a little bit of time to load. So yeah, let me just delete that since we don't have anything on it. Again, I haven't visited this project in a while. And finally we have this Kickstart plugin again, which is actually acting as a sidechain compression. So if we solo the bass line here, let me get rid of the sidechaining. So yeah. So yeah, once we have that, the next element is to come up with a kind of a melody or an arpeggiator that plays all throughout the track and keeps steady while the other element changes. This is a cool technique and pretty used within synthwave. So the idea is to keep kind of a catchy melody, so the listener keep listening or keep focusing on that, while the other track, the chords progression, the drums, your bass switches, and it adds some more harmonic complexity, if I say so. So we have this arpeggiator here, or ARP, and basically I'm playing three notes here. They are the same, and I'm adding some kind of bass note to make it more complex harmonically, and I'm playing it within a lower octave here. So effects wise, I have the arpeggiator, but I'm not using it. Again, you can use the Ableton Live arpeggiator. I prefer here to draw my notes. I have this key preset on Serum. I have some EQ8 to cut some of the low frequencies. I have this Pancake VST plugin, which is basically an auto pan plugin that help you pan your ARP in this case from the left to the right and make it more bouncy within the stereo field. Again, I have some sidechaining with kickstart. Finally, I have this delay tape from Arturia and some RC20 to add that great and that vintage sound. So if we solo again the arpeggiator, you can hear some pitch bending coming from retro color, which add that kind of retro sound. So I highly advise you to buy, if you don't have it, or purchase retro color for this type of sounds. It also add that there is let me maybe, since I don't want to unfreeze this because it will make a mess. I will add RC20 here just to show you the kind of the interface. I have it on most of my projects, so if you get to my previous tutorial you will find it, but yeah, this is the interface. You have some vinyl here, you have some mobile, some distortion, so you might play with that, some space, magnetic, etc. So if you're looking for that vinyl sound, you might want to play with the noise, with the wobble, distort your sound a bit to make it more vintage and coming from like typical analog synth. And yeah, you get the idea, I guess. Later you just need to experiment a bit to find your sound, I guess. Or you can have these presets and yeah, you can take it from there. So let's move to the next elements. We have our ARP here, again some repetitive melody. We have our pads to set the atmosphere here, but it's not playing all throughout the track. There is some section where I don't have it in order to leave some room to the other elements, sorry. And let's see, we have our lead here. So if I solo my lead sound here, let me first get rid of this pen tool by hitting the B shortcut or clicking here, Ctrl L to loop this section, and let me solo our lead. So yeah, I have the -12 here, the pitch plugin from Ableton Live, or stock plugin from Ableton Live. I have this lead sound from Serum. Again, I'm not really expanding on sound design here since it's a topic on its own, and you can find pretty much a lot of presets if you are not good at sound design. And obviously I generally start with like presets from packs and tweak it to my preferences. I don't waste a lot of time on like making sounds until I can make the sound within a couple of seconds, which is a faster approach than bouncing through my sounds. So later I have this EQ8 to cut some of the low frequencies. Since it's the lead, we don't need them. And I have this Valhalla vintage reverb. Again, this is an amazing reverb that will allow you to get that 70s, 80s kind of sound. And you can play with the color here. I highly advise you again to experiment with this type of plugin. Valhalla vintage reverb, the RC20, and yeah. And finally we have this auto filter that we will be using all throughout the track to, let me see the automation here, yeah, to mask the sound, to filter it out and in, and make the arrangement more interesting. So next let's move to our drums here, and let me solo the drum group and let's listen to them. So yeah, nothing complex here. So the basic idea is to go with a 4 on the floor beat. We are in the within the tempo of 100 beats per minute. So if you see my kicks here, we have 4 kick within each bar. And on my kick I have some EQ8 to cut some of the mud here within the mid frequencies. I have some glue compression with soft clipping to make the kick punch more. And again, I have some auto filter, since a common technique within Synthwave is to filter your auto filter. Maybe stay with it until the end of the video and you will listen to the effect, since I will be playing the whole track in the end. Later we have the snare. So no processing so far. The snare is just on -6 dB and it's playing on the 2nd and the 4th beat of each bar. So let's solo it. Again, pretty basic. Next we have our hats here. So let's go for the hats. My computer is acting a little bit weird. So with the hats, I've loaded a couple of hats here, but I'm mainly using, I guess, two hats. So we have here a 16th kind of pattern. I'm playing a bit with the velocity to make it more organic and more human, I guess. And I'm adding this open hi-hat at the end of the half at the end of this section to make it more interesting and make it more human, I guess. I played this hi-hats on my Ableton Live push, so you can go nuts with it. I tried to keep it simple, and yeah, I think it works. Finally, we have again some pancakes. So this is an auto pan VST. Again, you can use the auto pan with an Ableton Live. I prefer this since it have a friendlier, a more friendly, sorry about that, I can't pronounce the word, interface. And yeah, finally we have this EQ8 to cut some of the low frequencies. I'm also using the return channel on Ableton Live to add some reverb and delay and make the sound more interesting. So if I solo the hi-hats, another thing though, you need to use some swing on your hi-hats to make it more groovy. So I'm using the swing 16 to 25 on Ableton Live. So you can experiment with the Ableton Live library here, or you can steal your groove from any sample from Ableton Live. So if I show you pretty quickly how to do that. Sorry, let me add a track here. So we have our audio track. Let me find any random drums here. Where is rhythmic? No, I need some drums. Drum loop, so we don't care about it. You can import your drum and here click on extract groove. Sorry, I have my Ableton Live here in French, so you can click on extract groove and you have your groove extracted. Later you can apply it on your hi-hats or on your drum beat to make it more human, I guess, and more swingy and less on the grid. So yeah, as you might see here, I should have the option to add that extracted groove. You see it here, but I'm not gonna do it since it will mess up my track. Yeah, let's get rid of this audio track and move to the next element. The next element is this fill tom sample. So I have some EQ8 here to cut some of the low frequencies, some of the high frequencies. Nothing crazy here. I have it on -9 dB. I also have some saturation, and let's solo it and see what we have so far. So yeah, I think it adds a more human and an interesting aspect to the whole drum beat. Again, I'm using it within the end of each 4 bar or maybe 8 bar, it depends on your preferences, but don't overuse it, guys. It is just some sprinkle to make it more interesting. You don't need to go crazy with it. You might want to add some tom, some extra percussion, but here I kept it simple. Obviously I have this other tom sample, but it's playing here, and you can see it, I'm not overusing it within my track. So the idea is to keep it simple and play with the layers instead of overcomplicated your each element. So yeah, I think that's it for the whole elements. Next, maybe I should expand on this. So we have obviously some noise effects here. So I have this sweep, I added some auto filter, some reverb and some EQ8. So let's solo it. Again, this is kind of white noise to handle the transitions. We have some reverse snare here to introduce the next verse. I have this experimental effect here, which is a kind of texture. Again, basic EQing, some reverb and delay from the return channels. And finally we have this impact, but you can't really hear it. It's kind of a sub element, I guess. So yeah, it adds some texture to the whole sound. And within that context, we have our reverse symbols here. I use this basically within most of my tracks just to advance. Later I might change it or keep it, depends on my preferences. But yeah, this is the kind of sample that I bounce on my project to make me imagine the final output and later change it. So finally, I want to expand on this vocal texture. So I've decided I want a kind of a section B, maybe with more organic sounding. I decided to maybe add some saxophone later, but I kind of got lazy with the project. So I started with adding a vocal, but I didn't end up adding any other elements like guitars or saxophone or anything. So for the vocal texture here, we have some Valhalla vintage reverb. Again, some decay, some mix here. I changed the color on 80s. And I have some makeup here on the glue compression, again with some soft clipping. I have some EQA to cut the low frequencies and accentuate and make more present some of the high frequencies here, since we are using on the vocals. And finally, I have this delay eternity from the Arturia effects chain, and it's adding some delay and some echo to my sound. So if I solo my vocal sample here, let's see what we have. Again, you can listen to that huge delay within the vintage reverb and the eternity delay plugin. I love this effect. It kind of adds that ambient texture that works amazing and kind of accentuate and add an interesting element to the track. So I have this one shot and I have another one. Within the context of the track, let's hear it. So yeah, again, I'll be playing the track within the end of the video, since I'm not really concerned or satisfied with the mixing so far. But yeah, why not? Since you are here, maybe listen to the whole track. Let me expand also on some of the arrangement techniques. So here what I've did is within the first 16 bars. Let's see what we have here. I'm automating actually the filter cutoff on my serum here, so I introduce the pads gradually. I'm also doing the same with my ARPs here. So this is kind of introduce the tracks gradually until we hit the next 16 bars. Here we will have the bass in, so if I rename my pointers here, maybe I will go and name this bass plus kick in, just for the sake of it. So let's listen. And you can listen to that effect that I talked about, which is the the filtered kick. So the kick without the filter sound like this. And if I add my filter here, this is a perfect technique to introduce your drum sounds. Obviously, another technique is not to introduce your hi-hats or snare within the first 16 bar and let it build up a bit. Also to use your fills and toms to introduce other elements, just like here within the end of the first 16 bars we have our toms that will kind of tell the listener that we are introducing another element. And yeah, so other than that, it's basically experiment a lot with automation, the filter cutoff, your reverb and your delays. Play with the automation, filter some sounds off, some sounds in, add some tiny elements, and yeah, you can arrange your track that way. It's nothing complicated again, guys. I tend to keep it simple, and throughout making this video I've watched a tutorial by a guy who only had the Ableton Lite suite or version, I guess. So he had just 8 tracks to make this synthwave track. and he did an amazing job, which let me think about my approach. You don't need to have 50 tracks, 50 layers to make it sound amazing. You just need to make each sound matters, I guess. So thank you for watching again. Please subscribe to my channel and check my other tutorials. I will try to make my videos more frequent, as for now I'm a little bit dispersed, I guess. And let me know if there is any topic you want me to cover. And yeah, let me play the whole track, and peace. Peace.